My aunt insisted I sell my late grandmother's house and give her the money since she was older and wiser, and deserved it more. When I refused, she secretly moved in while I was away, laughing. "Try kicking me out, I have squatter's rights." But the day the sheriff arrived with a court order, her smug grin turned into hysterical screaming, and the words I spoke next left the entire family turning against her. Hey Reddit. Long-time lurker, first-time poster. This happened a few years ago, but I'm finally ready to talk about it. Some of my family still won't look me in the eye after this, but I don't regret anything. I, 32 male, at the time, was very close with my grandmother. She practically raised me. When my mom had to work long shifts at the hospital, Grandma was the one who made sure I had dinner, helped with homework, all of that. We weren't rich, but that house was the one steady thing in my life. She passed away in March 2019. Heart failure. Peaceful, in her sleep. About a week after the funeral, I got a call from her lawyer. I was the main person listed in the will. Grandma left the house to me. No conditions, no split with other family members, just me. I was named executor of the estate too. It was all clean and legal. A few days later, we had a family gathering at my uncle's place. That's when my aunt, let's call her Doris, not her real name, decided to corner me. Now Doris is the type of woman who always thinks she knows best. She's older, she raised 2 kids, she goes to church every Sunday, and for some reason thinks that makes her smarter than everyone else. My grandmother and Doris didn't get along well the last few years. Doris always acted like she was entitled to things, like Grandma owed her something. We were standing near the grill, making small talk, when she hit me with it. "You know, you should really sell that house and split the money. I mean, let's be honest, you're young, you've got time. I'm older. I've earned more." I thought she was joking at first. I laughed and said something like, "Nice try, Doris." She didn't laugh. She just stared at me, dead serious. "You don't need it like I do. I could use that money for retirement. It's just a house." I told her firmly that Grandma left it to me. It wasn't a group decision. Then came the guilt trip. "After everything I've done for this family, you're going to be greedy? You think you deserve more than me?" I wasn't in the mood for a fight, so I walked away. But I remember her parting words clear as day. "You'll see. You're not the only one who can make decisions." At that moment, I thought she was just being her usual dramatic self. I didn't realize she meant it literally. 2 months later, in late May, I had to leave town for a work trip. I'm in IT and had a week-long job in Atlanta. The house had been sitting mostly untouched since Grandma passed, but I had started cleaning it out, prepping to renovate and maybe move in eventually. I came back that Saturday night, around 9 p.m. Pulled into the driveway and noticed something weird right away. The porch light was on. I never left the porch light on. I got out of my car and looked around. The front flower bed had been trimmed. Curtains I didn't recognize were hanging in the front window. I unlocked the front gate and went to the door. The key didn't fit. I tried again, thinking I messed up. Nope. The locks had been changed. I stepped back and called out, thinking maybe someone was inside, maybe a break-in. The door opened. There stood Aunt Doris, wearing one of Grandma's old robes and holding a mug like she owned the place. I was stunned. She looked me up and down and said, "You were gone. I moved in. I've got mail here now, I pay the water bill, and I've established residency. Try kicking me out, I've got squatter's rights." Then she smiled. She actually smiled. I didn't say anything at first. I just turned around and walked back to my car. I didn't know what to do. Called the police, obviously. Cops showed up about 15 minutes later. I showed them the will, the deed, everything. Explained what happened. But they just shrugged. "Sorry, sir, this is a civil matter. You'll have to go through the courts." I couldn't believe it. She just stood behind them, acting innocent, sipping her tea like this was normal. The situation gets worse. Over the next few days, I tried everything. I called the county. I called a lawyer. I even called Adult Protective Services, thinking maybe someone would do something about her. Nothing happened fast. In the meantime, Doris made herself very comfortable. She moved her 2 dogs in. She changed the locks on the back door too. And the worst part? She held a garage sale. Right there in the driveway. Selling off my grandmother's belongings, furniture, dishes, photo albums. Yes, actual family photo albums. Sold them for $5 a piece like they were old magazines. When I tried to stop her, she told me to leave. "You're harassing a resident. This is my home now." I walked away before I did something that would land me in jail. The build-up. I spent the next month documenting everything. I wasn't going to fight her by yelling. I was going to take her out legally. I collected copies of the will and deed records from the utility companies showing she transferred the bills into her name, Facebook screenshots of her posts finally settling in at Mama's place, pictures of the garage sale statements from neighbors I filed for unlawful detainer through the county clerk. I also requested a temporary injunction to stop her from selling any more items. Then I waited. Court dates take time. I kept my head down, didn't engage. But inside, I was boiling. She wasn't just stealing a house. She was stealing my memories, my family history, and acting like she earned it. She started putting up decorations too. Wind chimes. A medal. Doris's den. Sign on the gate. One day, I drove by and saw her walking around the yard in Grandma's old sahat, talking to the neighbors like she was queen of the block. They didn't like her. A few called me and said things like, "We know this is your house." But legally, until the court acted, she had the upper hand. Then, the court date arrived. I'll stop here for now. Let's just say, she didn't expect what happened next. Things got loud. Real loud. And what I said in front of the entire family after the judgment turned a lot of heads. Some people sided with her. Most didn't. But one thing changed for good after that day. Court was set for a Tuesday morning. I showed up early, suit and tie, documents in hand. My lawyer was beside me. Doris? She walked in 20 minutes late, wearing jeans and a floral blouse, carrying a stack of papers in a crumpled grocery bag. She looked surprised to see me there, like she didn't think I'd actually go through with it. The judge was a short, older man who didn't smile much. Once things started, it was quick. My lawyer laid out everything. The deed. The will. The pictures. The utility records. My receipts showing I paid taxes on the house. Doris tried to talk over him, interrupting every other sentence. But I lived there. I had a key. I've been taking care of the property. He abandoned it. The judge told her to stop 3 times. Then she tried a new angle. My mother always told me that house would be mine. She just never got around to writing it down. The judge blinked slowly. Then he asked, "Did your mother leave a written will?" Doris. Yes. Judge. Did it name you as the heir? Doris. No, but... Judge. Then that's what matters. She went silent after that. He ruled in my favor in under 15 minutes. This house legally belongs to me. The defendant is to vacate the premises within 72 hours or be forcibly removed by the sheriff's department. You'd think that would be it. It wasn't. 3 hours later, I get a call from a neighbor. Hey, Doris is in your front yard. Screaming. She's throwing things at your mailbox. I drove over fast. When I got there, she was sitting on the porch, red-faced, shouting into her phone. That little bastard stole my life. He tricked her. He brainwashed her into giving him everything. She saw me, stood up, and marched right up to my car window. You think you've won? You think this is over? I'll fight this. I'll appeal. I'll go to the media. You're a liar and a manipulator. I didn't say anything. I just pulled out my phone and hit record. She screamed again, this time louder. The neighbors came outside. She realized I was recording, tried to grab my phone. I stepped back. Cops came again. Warned her. Told her to cool it down. Then, 2 nights later, I got a call from the same neighbor at 2:30 a.m. There's someone in the house. Lights are on. Thought you should know. I grabbed my keys and rushed over. Sure enough, lights on. Back door wide open. I called the cops immediately. They searched the house. Found Doris inside, sitting on the floor in the living room, eating crackers and watching some old VHS tape of my grandma's 80th birthday. When they asked what she was doing, she said, "Just remembering. It's my home. It'll always be my home." They escorted her out. This time, I pressed charges for trespassing. She didn't take it well. She cursed the cops out. She cursed me out. Even tried to kick one of the trash cans over on the way out. Now here's where things took a weird turn. That night, after everything settled, I stayed at the house. First time sleeping there since she moved in. Around 4 a.m., I went to the kitchen to grab water. There was a letter on the counter. Looked old. Folded, faded paper with Grandma's handwriting. I opened it. It was a letter addressed to me. Dated 2018. She must have written it and never gave it to me. She wrote, "If Doris ever tries to take what isn't hers, don't give in. You know how she is. She's always had a way of twisting things. I want you to have peace here. You deserve it. Let her live her own life, but don't let her ruin yours. Love, Grandma." I stood there, in the same kitchen she used to make biscuits in, holding a warning from beyond the grave. Suddenly everything felt heavier. This wasn't just about a house. It was about a line in the sand. A lifetime of resentment coming to the surface. I kept that letter. Got it framed the next week. Still hangs in the hallway. A few days later, another twist. I got a call from Doris's oldest son, my cousin Nate. We hadn't talked much in years. But he was calling for a reason. I need to tell you something. About my mom. He sounded nervous. She's trying to sue you. She's telling people you forced Grandma to change her will. That you manipulated her in her old age. I sat down. She's going around saying you used your tech job to hack her accounts. That you blackmailed her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And she's trying to get other family members to testify against you. She called my sister, tried to convince her to lie. Said it was for justice. This woman was not letting go. That same week, a cousin I barely talked to, from another state, posted something vague on Facebook. Funny how some people suddenly become homeowners after a death in the family. I knew where it came from. Family group chats lit up. Rumors started flying. People calling me greedy. Saying I was obsessed with money. That I took advantage of an old lady. One even said, "If that house meant so much to you, why didn't you move in sooner?" I didn't respond. I didn't post a thing. I just kept gathering everything. Because I knew if Doris tried to go to court again, I needed proof of everything. She was building a case on lies. But I had receipts. That's where things are now. She hasn't filed yet, but she's talking. Loudly. To anyone who will listen. Part of me wants to shut it down quietly. Let her burn herself out. But another part of me wants her to try. Because when she does, and she's standing in front of a judge again with nothing but rumors and fake stories, I'll be ready. Still no ending yet. But it's coming. And she's not going to like it. About a week later, I got a notice in the mail from a local law office. Doris had filed a petition to challenge the will. She claimed undue influence, that somehow I'd manipulated Grandma into changing it and cutting out the rest of the family. In her petition, she said Grandma wasn't in her right mind when she signed the documents. I took the paperwork straight to my lawyer. He read it, raised an eyebrow, and said, "This is thin. But it could drag out for months if a judge allows it." He wasn't wrong. It slowed everything down again. The court had to schedule a preliminary hearing just to decide if her claim was valid enough to proceed. I didn't sleep much those nights. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd see my grandmother's face and hear Doris yelling about what she was owed. I kept reading that letter over and over, like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. Then, things got messy. One of Doris's dogs bit a neighbor's kid. It was all over the HOA Facebook group. The boy had to get stitches. The parents were furious. And guess whose name was still tied to the property in public records? Mine. Even though the court already ruled the house was mine and Doris had no legal right to be there, the city records still showed the house as part of the unresolved estate because of the petition she filed. So the parents came after me for medical bills. I had to pay out of pocket and sue Doris in small claims just to get reimbursed. And while that mess was playing out, someone broke into my car. Smashed the back window, stole nothing. But they left a note. It said, "You're tearing this family apart. Sell the house. Give her what's fair." The handwriting looked weird. Blocky. Like someone tried to disguise it. I didn't have proof, but I knew it was someone connected to her. So I installed cameras around the house. Real ones, not the fake dummy units. I also put up a private property, video surveillance sign right above the door. And that's when I caught it. Doris. 2 a.m. Hood up. She crept onto the porch and tried to unscrew the mailbox from the wall. I couldn't believe it. She was trying to take the whole mailbox. Next morning, I went to the courthouse and filed a restraining order. The hearing for the will challenge finally came up. Doris showed up with some guy claiming to be a witness. Said he was there when Grandma said she wanted to leave the house to Doris. Verbally. He looked nervous. Kept checking his phone. Said he was a friend of the family. But when asked under oath what Grandma's middle name was, he got it wrong. Said it was Marie. It's Louise. I handed the judge the original video I took with Grandma from 2 years before her death, her sitting in the kitchen, perfectly clear-headed, saying, "I want him to have the house. He's the only one who never asked me for anything." It wasn't a legal will, but it was damning for Doris's claims of confusion. The judge threw the whole petition out. That should have been the end. But it wasn't. Later that week, I got a text from my cousin Nate again. "Hey. Just thought you should know, Mom's trying to sell the house behind your back. I called him. What are you talking about? She's telling people she's the rightful owner. She's showing it to some sketchy buyer named Vic. I think they're trying to flip it under the table. I couldn't believe it. I checked online, and sure enough, there was a Craigslist ad for the house. Photos from the inside. Pictures she must have taken months ago. It read, 3BR/2BA historic home, cash buyers only. Motivated seller, $75,000 OBO. That was $100,000 under market value. The contact info was hers. She was trying to scam someone into buying a house she didn't own. I reported the ad, contacted Craigslist, and filed another report with the police. But the twist? The guy she was trying to sell to, Vic, showed up at the house a few days later. I caught him on camera, measuring windows, looking around like he was casing the place. I walked out and said, "Can I help you?" He looked up, confused. "Aren't you the seller?" "Nope. I own the house. And I suggest you leave before the cops get here." He drove off fast. I thought maybe this would scare her into backing off. Wrong. She called CPS on me. Claimed I had my nephew, my sister's 5-year-old son, over at the house while drugs were being used and the environment was unsafe. A CPS worker actually showed up while I was mowing the yard. She was polite, professional, and realized very quickly that the claim was bogus. But she had to file a visit report, and I had to explain everything. It didn't take long before she said, "It sounds like someone is trying to weaponize the system." I nodded. It's been happening for months. Now I'm sitting here, stacks of paperwork in my kitchen, a folder full of screenshots, and one really pissed off lawyer who now knows this case better than his own divorce. Doris has pushed every limit, tried every trick, told every lie. But she doesn't realize something. The more she pushes, the more people turn against her. And the bigger the fall is going to be. Still no ending yet. But trust me, it's coming. About 3 weeks after the CPS stunt, things hit a boiling point. I had just gotten off the phone with my lawyer again, another update about the restraining order hearing, which Doris hadn't shown up to. Another win, but it felt hollow. My life was still a mess, and this woman was still out there spinning lies. That weekend, my cousin Nate called again. "She's planning something." "What now?" "She invited half the family to your grandma's house for some special announcement this Sunday. Said it's about setting things straight." I felt like my stomach dropped into my shoes. "She's trying to ambush you," he said. "I wouldn't go." But I knew I had to. I wanted them to hear the truth. Sunday came. I pulled into the driveway around 12:15. Her announcement was set for 12:30. Already 5 cars were parked out front. A few lawn chairs on the grass. Her daughter Janice was setting out lemonade like this was a church picnic. It was surreal. I stepped out of the car. Everything went quiet. People watched me, some surprised I even showed up. Others looked annoyed, like I was the one causing drama. I saw Aunt Valerie whispering something to Uncle Pete. Nate gave me a slight nod from across the yard. Then Doris came out of the house, wearing a pearl necklace and a fake smile. "Well, I wasn't sure you'd show," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm here," I said, calm as I could. "Good. Maybe it's time everyone heard both sides of the story." She stood on the porch like it was a courtroom and launched into this whole speech about family, about entitlement, and respecting elders, and how money changes people. She said Grandma always promised her the house. That I used trickery, and took advantage of her kindness. That I was dragging the family name through the mud over a piece of property. I let her talk. Let her dig her own hole. When she finally stopped, I walked up to the porch, pulled the framed letter out of my bag, and handed it to Uncle Pete. "Read it," I said. Out loud. He did. Doris tried to stop him. Said it was fake. Said Grandma never wrote that. But the signature matched every card Grandma ever sent. Then I pulled out the video on my phone. The one of Grandma, 2 years before she died, sitting in her kitchen, saying in her own voice, "I want him to have the house. Not Doris. He's the only one I trust." I turned the volume up. Dead silence. Then, from the crowd, Aunt Valerie spoke. "I believe it." Janice muttered. "I told you, Mom. I told you not to lie about that video." That's when Doris snapped. She screamed, actually screamed. This was supposed to be mine. She kicked the porch railing so hard her shoe came off. Then turned on me. "You stole it. You were always the favorite. You just sat back and waited for her to die so you could take everything." My voice shook, but I answered. "I didn't take anything. You tried to steal it." You moved into a house that wasn't yours, sold off her things, lied to everyone. You called CPS. You broke into the house. You tried to sell it to strangers. You did all that. Not me. Someone in the crowd gasped. Someone else whispered. She did what? Then Nate spoke up. It's true. I told him. I saw it all. Doris froze. Eyes wide. Breathing heavy. And then? She burst into tears. Not silent, graceful crying, no, loud, messy, angry sobbing. She sank to the steps and just crumbled. For a moment, no one moved. Then Janice walked over, put her hand on her mom's shoulder, and said, I can't keep defending you, Mom. You need help. Doris swatted her hand away and stormed inside, slamming the screen door behind her so hard it bounced back open. The crowd slowly started to break up after that. No one wanted lemonade anymore. Some people muttered apologies. Others just left without a word. Uncle Pete came up to me and said, I didn't know it was this bad. I'm sorry. Aunt Valerie hugged me, tight. Nate stayed until the end. We sat on the porch steps in silence for a long time. He finally said, You were right not to back down. I nodded. But it didn't feel like winning. Not really. The next morning, I got a voicemail. It was Doris. Her voice was calmer, but cold. I hope you're happy. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. I've lost my friends, my family, and my daughter won't even speak to me. I guess that's what you wanted all along. She didn't apologize. She didn't admit anything. Just ended the call with, I won't fight you anymore. But don't expect forgiveness. I saved the message and deleted her number. A few weeks passed. I changed the locks again. Repainted the porch. Replaced the mailbox. Life started to feel normal. But the house felt different. It didn't feel like Grandma's house anymore. It felt like something I had to defend, not something I inherited with love. I still kept her picture in the hallway, next to the framed letter. But the warm feeling I used to get when I walked through the door? It was gone. The damage had already been done. Janice reached out once, to say thank you, for not fighting back the way I could have. Nate and I still talk. Aunt Valerie invites me over for dinner sometimes. But the family isn't the same. It probably never will be. Looking back, I don't regret standing my ground. But I do regret how far it had to go. If Doris had just asked for help, maybe things could have been different. Maybe we could have found a way. But she chose lies, manipulation, and scorched earth tactics. And in the end, all she got was isolation. Me? I got the house. But I also got the fallout.